So for this next segment, we're going to talk about how to deal with family and save yourself. Using self-care. All right. So is there anything specific you want to kick off this conversation with?
Ooh, um, it's kind of another tough conversation because I personally went through a dysfunctional family,
Hmm.
and my mother was not equipped to raise us as best she could. So, my first interaction with understanding self care was when I was about 6 or 7. I was at school, and maybe the school nurse or the teacher brought myself and my sister into the bathroom and told us to wash up.
Ooh, okay.
Didn't understand why it was happening, but I think I eventually figured it out. We were not taught self care
Hmm.
as kids, so somebody else had to do it, and that is polarizing.
Yeah.
I didn't understand what was going on, but I knew I had to. They wanted me to take a wash up in the sink, and I'm like, why are they doing this? And I don't think that they told me why, and I don't think I figured it out until later. So I had to figure that out as
Yeah.
a little girl. And growing into puberty and everything, I think my extended family kind of helped usher me into it because my mom, her own self care was unfortunately by the wayside because
Yeah.
she was struggling with mental illness. Um, so I had to figure it out through immediate family, through maybe watching my sister, needing to take a bath, needing to change your underwear, needing to eventually wear a bra.
Hmm.
I never got the sex talk or the menstruation talk or anything. That is something else I had to figure out regarding self care. My family didn't do it because I don't think
Mm.
my aunts told me about that specifically. I
Yeah.
don't even know how I figured out that I needed to wear a pad. I think I just
Wow.
did
Yeah.
because nobody told me.
Yeah.
So I had no point of reference for
Okay.
self care growing up. I really had to figure it out on the fly, especially when kids are talking about how bad you smell and
Mm.
how bad you look.
Yeah.
You don't understand why, but then you
Hmm.
figure it out. And then that's
Yeah.
kind of when things change. So I would say I really got on top of it maybe when I was 12 or 13.
Okay.
But before then, I don't really think I had an understanding, a full understanding, because nobody taught me. And I kind of knew about it by like I said, my immediate family. They kind of took over the reins. But
Hmm.
then I think maybe as I hit puberty and started coming into my own as a teenager, a young woman, and also getting like a part time or a summer job, that's when things changed. And I understood the need for self care, like consistent
Yeah.
self care. Got to take a shower, got to take a bath, got to change your clothes, got to go to the laundromat.
Hmm.
Um, and it was really just sad. It's really sad looking back on it that had to be the way we were introduced to it. At school, somebody had to say, "Okay, these kids stink.
Yeah.
Somebody, we got to give them a bath or teach them what they need to do." Very embarrassing. And again, I didn't know what was really going on. I didn't understand it until now at my
Hmm.
big age. It's like, oh wow, nobody taught us. Mom didn't teach us. She was supposed to teach us because you're the parent in the household, but nobody taught us. And then that's when, like I said, I think the extended family kind of stepped in and they kind of started doing our hair, buying
Hmm.
us clothes, kind of keeping up on top of our hygiene for
Yeah.
us, like take a bath, take a shower. And like I said, again, I came into it upon myself once I got maybe 12 or 13 and was able to support myself a little, buy
Hmm.
clothes and shoes and things. And I wanted to smell nice and I didn't want the kids to talk about me. It was bad
Yeah.
enough that I was a fat kid and a fat teenager. So they were already bullying me.
Right.
So I really came into more of the self care awareness
Yeah.
outside of my family when I was, like I said, 12 or 13.
You know what? You have just totally reframed this part of the conversation because we were it was going to be labeled family, which is still relevant, but this is like the origin story, because what you just shared, I just realized that we need to talk about the origins of self-care, because I have slightly different, but along the same line as like, when the hell did I figure out what self-care was? You made up some really good points, because, you know, I am, we'll get into our Duchess and Princess of self-care later, but I've always been attracted to glamour and all that sort of thing. But looking at my upbringing, again, raised in a cult, you did not wear makeup. There was no talk about, yeah, your appearance did not matter, but it did. You had to look like everybody else in the religion, in the community. You had to look the same. But look, I got my period when I was 9. And how did it? My mom gave me books, and I looked at the books and put them in my closet because she never talked to me about it. I mean, we did have sex ed. We had sex ed like a year after I went through puberty, though. That was the only problem. It was like grade 5, and I went through it in grade 4. So by the time all that came up, everyone's like, "Oh, LeNora, I bet you went through puberty." And here's me with like a full set of boobs at 10, going, "No," because I did not know what to do with myself. But what you shared, I'm like, oh my goodness, again, a slightly different story, but same pain. My parents chose this organization to raise their kids in. We were raising it from birth. It was a cult. No other way to describe it. The worst in the sense that there's no support. There's no actual conversation about what's going on. So I'm just going to speculate what my mother went through. Suddenly she's got this 9-year-old who's developing rapidly, and you're not in an environment where you talk about sexuality. You're not in an environment where you're allowed to speak positively about your body changing. And all of a sudden I'm realizing men are looking at me differently, and it makes me feel uncomfortable. And just for the right, like I've never been abused. I've never luckily never had any of those experiences. But I remember feeling very uncomfortable in my childhood because I had the body of an adult very young, and did not understand why people were looking at me a certain way. So then when we talk about hygiene and self-care, and you're like, I mean, my hair was in a braid all the time. I always wore dresses. Nothing really changed in that department, but I show cleavage now. But taking care of yourself. So what did I do? I started stealing magazines and reading, or going to the well, first it was going to the library, and then around like 12, when I moved down to close to where I live now, I started stealing magazines and reading, was it 17 magazine? I think that's what it was, 17 magazine.
I think it was 7.
Yeah. That is where I started reading, because, just keeping yourself clean. I mean, I wasn't necessarily, I had a bath and stuff. Like, I knew to do that. Like, I was taught to do that. But shaving and
ripping and preening and all of that stuff, and perfume and all that.
But even the period thing, because I mean, I don't remember having much of a discussion with my mom about it, but I mean, I probably had PCOS very, very young, because it was just always a mess, and you're just embarrassed. And the problem is, there's no one to talk to about it. How I was raised, you did not talk about it. There's no support. And I was not raised around family, because my parents segregated us from family because nobody was involved in the religion. So we lived somewhere else. I didn't, I saw my grandmothers, but I didn't have aunts, or I didn't have any female role models that were willing to guide me on any of this stuff. So, my mom, I don't really know what she thought. Maybe it's just a parenting thing. Maybe she didn't feel supported. She didn't know what to do with a daughter like LeNora, because I wasn't the easiest kid, and I went through stuff really early. So you're just floundering. You're just what do we do? This is where I'm at, and I got to do something, but I don't know what. So,
and the funny thing is, I think my extended family kind of undertook my sister. Like I said, I got maybe a couple of things here and there. Like sometimes my hair would get done and they buy me clothes. Mm-hmm. But I think they kind of undertook her and kind of left me in the lurch, because, she's the oldest. I'm the youngest. Okay. Maybe they figured my mom would take the reins, which she didn't. Wow. So, and then of course my sister got pregnant early, 15. I was like, oh boy.
Yeah.
And I'm 10. It's like I don't really have a frame of reference about that either. No full
Right.
understanding.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking to me. I'm just like, all this stuff is happening around me.
Yeah.
And nobody's talking to me. And I'm having to figure these things out, my own sexuality. And that is also part of self-care.
Yep.
And I did eventually figure that out. I won't get too deep
I'm
into
still
it.
figuring mine out. Good for you. It's so freaking complicated. I don't know.
Well, the way dating is going, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just was like, I'm trying to remember, did my sister talk to me? I don't really remember her sitting me down and having a talk. I really think I had to figure it out on my own, or maybe the nurse or somebody taught me about it.
Yeah.
Because eventually I figured out pads and everything and menstruation eventually, but I don't remember my mother specifically telling me about it. I think maybe she got me a box, and I think she expected me just to figure it out. Here's some pads. There you go. You know. Woo,
okay, so did you guys have sex ed in school?
I think maybe there was a class.
Okay.
Really,
because I mean there is a bit of an age difference between the two of us, and we're in different countries. So I don't know what the American school system is like, because I know well, I haven't. Okay, let me I have an idea of what some areas of the educational system is like. But okay. All right.
It was I think maybe a class or two, and that was it. I really didn't learn anything from there either.
Yeah.
I literally had to figure out the things that was happening with my body and what I was feeling on my own.
So now, okay, so that's the beginning of, what we're talking about, self-care now. How has that affected you throughout your life? I mean, just like to where you are now, like what you've gone through, and I guess, has it made you more independent in figuring out what works for you, instead of, kind of looking to outside sources? I'm just talking about like what self-care of any level. Like how did that influence, or did it, like, what's your thought on that?
It influenced all of us as kids. There were 3 of us, and we were like, we do not want to be like our mom. It was embarrassing. So I think all of us, to a point, I don't know about my brother, but I know my sister and myself, we're just hyper vigilant about staying clean and cleaning up and keeping our bodies clean and washing clothes and making sure things aren't dirty. We became the complete opposite. And I know, like I said, I've struggled with self-care during mental health challenges, and I'm really actually not the best cleaner. So unfortunately, I kind of got that from my mom. I don't really like cleaning.
But cleaning isn't fun.
Thing. It is not. And my mother certainly didn't like to do it. But as I said, coming from the background I didn't want to be seen as slovenly.
Right.
Or somebody come over my house and they're like, ew, it's nasty. And people usually compared me or said I was going to be like my mom because, we were both heavy and we looked alike. And they were like, she's going to be just like her mom. And I'm like, the hell I am.
Yeah.
So, that's how it made me. Hyper vigilant about everything. Body cleanliness, cleaning up, making sure everything was just so and tidy. There were times, like I said, especially once I started living on my own and I was divorced, that I kind of let some things go because it's just me. Yeah. And I can kind of go by the wayside. But if I had company or something, I was cleaning up. I was making sure I was showered and fresh. And especially after I got divorced, things really kicked into gear with self-care because I was dating and dealing with men again.
Right.
And so, having sex and everything. And so that really just flipped a switch. Well, even after I moved out at age 23, I was hyper vigilant about keeping my place clean and my body clean and everything like that, because I didn't want to end up like my mom or have people talk about me after coming over my house. So that's how it affected me. We went the complete opposite direction. At least, again, me and my sister.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I, like, when it comes to house, I am natural, like I'm artistic, so I'm naturally very, very messy. But around the age of 26, after a couple of apartments, and then just having a career crash and like getting rid of everything I own, so all my possessions fit in a little car. Um, I learned how to be clean in my house, like keep my house clean. I mean, I think by the time I was 16, I got it together.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because like bringing it back to teenagehood and stuff, because you know, up until the age of 16, I was fighting with my parents constantly because of how we were raised, and you know, it was so restrictive, and I was rebelling. I'm like, wait a sec, I want to dye my hair, I want to go to a dance, I want to go to a movie, I want to have friends. You know, and so that, and my parents ended up putting me in anger management because they didn't know what to do with me. They thought I was mad. I was, but it turns out I had a right to be mad. So the therapist decided, my parents, I remember this, the three of us were sitting in the counselor's office. She was a lovely Jamaican woman. Finally, someone that explained race to me. So, you know this, but some people might not. I'm biracial, black dad, white mother. That also why there was a disconnect between me and my mother, because I'm white passing, but I'm brown, and so like I'm actually darker in person than what I look like on screen here, and uh, no one associated us with as mother and daughter. But she was the first person to explain to me what race was, because my parents didn't talk about color, they didn't talk about race. My dad acts like he's a white person, but he's clearly not. Like it's very complicated. But she explained to me why there's a disconnect and how much, there's a lack of understanding, and that helped. And so with that, and also when she heard about how our parents were raising us, my parents were raising me, and what we were not allowed to do and why, she told them, you have to let your daughter live, because she's like, there's nothing wrong with your daughter. Heck, I had a violin teaching studio at that point for a year already. Like I was an overachiever. I was not doing anything wrong. But once I was allowed, I had permission to dye my hair. I had that classic montage in grade 10 where I was like completely weird. I came back from Christmas break and I was like a glamour bot. Like because over that period of time, like it was like one of those scenes. I cut my hair a bit. I dyed it red. I got to do like glitter makeup. Like I got to do it all. And I just went back to second semester like this.
A completely different person on the outside.
Completely different person on the outside. And I was so happy. And that really kicked it in for me, because I had permission. I had permission to express myself physically. I still wore long dresses, and I mean, again, that hasn't really changed, but like I got to finally, like, instead of wishing and hoping like I could look a certain way or just present myself as, like, I actually got to do it. And so from then on, I mean, even when I went back to that organization for a while, I was still wearing heels, and I did my own thing. I didn't really wear makeup, but I owned myself more. So that really did help. And that, I mean, anyone that knows me, like, self-care is like top priority. But that started there. It started at 16. And I guess it comes down to having permission, giving yourself permission, because when you're a kid, you like, we don't know. We didn't know like what we're supposed to do. No one said anything. So we're floundering, figuring it out. But then when it hits, it's like, you are allowed to do this. And I think even as adults, when it comes to self-care and however you got there or are getting there, it's like, give yourself permission to take care of yourself in whatever way you want to do it, And this goes for any gender. Like, it's okay to want to feel okay about yourself and look good, smell good, feel good, whatever, but it's just, it's those moments, and that, like, they're so important. And this is actually making me feel kind of emotional, because I just
bringing up some things.
Oh yeah, bringing up some massive feelings right now. Because it like, in a way, it's sad. Like, you feel sad. Like, I don't feel embarrassed by anything now, because it's a little long time, but I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, no, when I first started talking about it, and I went back, and I'm like, oh my God, that was the first time that we were shown, ooh, that's That
Yeah.
was embarrassing. And then I came into my own as I got older. I think the princess stuff started when I was about 12 or 13.
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite cartoon was Jim. You know, this gorgeous pink haired rock star with all these
Mhm.
beautiful women. I'm like, yeah, that's me. And I
Yeah.
started dressing and utilizing self care as such, buying dresses and stuff that match, shoes that match,
Yeah.
pantyhose. I
Nice.
became very girly
Yeah.
because this is how I wanted to express myself. And like you, when I fell into self care and leaned into it, I was like, ooh, I like this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the boys may not look or whatever, but I get a compliment or two, but I like feeling this way. I like
Yes.
wearing
Yeah.
my what is it? My mint colored satin peplum dress. And I'm like, oh my God. It was the 80s. It was the 80s. Ooh, phew,
I don't
wow.
know. It might be back in style now, for all you know.
So I look back on that period of the beginning was real rough, the
Yeah.
middle was shaky, but once I got it, man, I got it. And I'm
Yeah.
still that way.
That's awesome.
So I'm
Yeah.
grateful that I did get it because some people, they go in between. They
Yeah.
get it, then they lose it, then they get it, then they
Yeah.
lose it. But then that could be because of other factors and such. And again, mental health, as we discussed, may also have something to do with it. But yeah, my
Mhm.
family didn't really teach me what I needed to really know. They may have done some things, but
Yeah.
I eventually really figured it out myself.
You know, and I guess, I mean, like, when I think about it that way, just how, I guess maybe this is why I feel a need to like express this part of me so much. I mean, by this, you know, for anyone that's kind of familiar with me, you know, I show up in different color wigs. I put on a glamorous appearance because, well, first of all, years ago it made me comfortable being public about being child free and podcasting and stuff. And now, I mean, it's the part of me that I always feel inside, and this has been a great outlet for me to do it. I don't need to do it anymore, but I'm going to because it's just fun. But a part of it I realize is like by just showing up and having fun with it, because I hear from people like, you know what, it's I kind of want to maybe not do exactly what you're doing, but just allow myself to indulge in certain things or feel okay with expressing myself in a certain way. Because look, I grew up where glitter was bad, rhinestones are bad, makeup is bad, nails are bad, this is bad, that's bad, looking at anybody's
Wow.
bad, like, you know. So it's like you're going to hell for all of it. Like, I just by me showing up in a dress that shows like is tight, shows my boobs and shows my knees, and you know, I'm like straight going to hell. I'm
Wow.
not, but this is how I was taught. So it's like when everything has been suppressed, and my natural personality is flamboyant. Look, like Elton John is my favorite person on the planet. You know,
That
just
says a lot right then and there.
doesn't it? Like, you know, I feel like we're soulmates. So, and like I think the first time I was in grade 4 when I saw a photo of him in platforms and glasses and like sitting at a piano, I'm like, who is that? Like, you know, I didn't
That's
grow up
for
on a TV.
me.
Yes, that is for me. So there's been a natural inclination towards something that I was taught was wrong. And so in my normal fashion, I go and pursue it. Wrong or not, I'm going
This is
after
me.
this.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, I'm well at this point where I'm like, I'm just showing up that way. And I know that it just somehow like will inspire the people that need to be inspired to show up how they want to show up. It's okay. And it doesn't even have to be a religion thing. It's like it's okay to do it. And you all get there in your own journey, you know. And so also I wanted to ask you about that. Like, you know, I never feel it's too late for anybody. But let's
Mhm.
say someone has gone through a significant point of our life. Because look, I'm about to turn 40. You are in your 40s. We both look at least a decade younger, but we are women of a certain age and we own
Yes.
it and we're fine
Yes.
with it. But I realize that there could be somebody our age or whatever close to that has not hit that point of allowing self-care yet. So, and
Hmm.
I there's no part of me that thinks that it's too late for anybody, you know? So I just want
Agreed.
like words of encouragement or like what are your thoughts on, you know, someone kind of figuring out later in life?
I say go for it. Lean into it. If you're
Yeah.
feeling you want to express yourself in a certain way, do it. If you feel like you're a princess and you like being spoiled and pampered, oh, I got to get my nails done, I got to get my
Mhm.
hair done, I like makeup, I like perfume, go full force into it. Because first and foremost, you got to make yourself a priority. You've got to do what makes you happy.
Yeah.
Find happiness within, pleasure within. And if you want to go the opposite way, you can do that too. Nothing is set in stone here.
Mhm.
Do what works for you.
Yeah.
And if you're just coming into the self care journey, figure out what makes you feel good. Because that is part of self care, feeling good. Not
Yes.
just looking good or smelling good, feeling good about how you're going about this. What are
Yes.
you doing to beautify yourself, make your body feel good?
Mm-hmm.
You've got to figure out what it is step by step, and it's
Yeah.
okay
Yeah.
to do whatever you want to do as far as self-care. If you want to soak in the tub and you feel that, well, that's my self-care and that's enough, cool. If you
Yeah.
want to dress up and all that and go out or and shop in heels and a nice dress,
Yes.
do that.
Yeah.
Do the self-care that fulfills you, makes you happy. It's like, this is my happy point. And I don't care about
Yeah.
anybody else. I'm going to go and be me. Express yourself. Don't repress yourself, because that sucks. As
Oh, it
LeNora
does.
was just talking about, she, was very restricted
Mhm.
and repressed, and it'll come out in other ways.
Yeah.
So be free with whatever you want to do at whatever age you are discovering yourself
Mhm.
and what you need for self care. What
Yeah.
would make you feel good outside of just looking good, because it's a spiritual thing too. That's another topic.
It
But
is. Oh, we need to add that to the
spirituality,
list.
yeah, spirituality is also a form of self care. Not
Totally.
religion per se. That's
No.
another. That's another thing. But your own spiritual well being is also a form of self care.
Yeah. And because you had brought up like the performative aspect of it
Mm-hmm.
before, and I when you said feeling, I feel that is when it's genuine. You can look, which is the performative aspect of it, and sometimes that's
Mm-hmm.
all we can get to. There are
Yeah.
some days where it's like, you know what, like I'm not feeling it, but I'll put on something glittery, I'll put on a nice dress, I'll put on extra makeup or whatever, and I'm not necessarily feeling it, but I'm like, well, I'm presenting this. That's okay. It's better than to me, it's better than not doing anything, because that would make me feel worse. And I'm not saying that anyone has to do that. But for me personally, I'm like, if that's all I can get to this day, fine. And usually I kind of perk up a bit as I go along. But when
Right.
you feel it, and when I feel it, I actually don't have to do very much on the
When
outside,
you feel it, you own it.
You
It's like, I
do. You
got
do.
this. This
Yeah.
is
And
me.
yeah, and how people respond to, or like, what, I try and do that even when I know I'm not leaving the house. Like, and that's what it's come to, because like I like my home life. I like where I live. I like that I live by myself. But even when I didn't live by myself, I did make it a priority. Actually, this really segues into the next relationship conversation, but like I really made it a priority to find a space wherever I was living where I could at least even have that feeling just by myself in my little corner or in my car, because a lot of times we're not operating or living the way we really want to. We have to get there, but that doesn't
Mhm.
mean we can't have those feelings on the journey to get to where we want to be. Like I'm at a
Exactly.
point in my life where I absolutely love. Has my life always been this way? No, there's no guarantee it's going to stay this way. But what I do know is like those feelings I've been working on. I've put a lot of effort into getting this feeling, so that when my outward life does not necessarily match what I want, I can still somewhat feel how I want to feel. And I think that is like, that's the key. That's really, yeah, when you own it and you're like, all right, got to deal with shit, but you know what? I can do this,
Exactly.